Hi folks, Lana here with another video inspired by the Dance of Fear book by Harriet Lerner. And the thought that I'm pulling from this book today is, when we take rejection as proof of our inadequacies, it's hard to allow ourselves to risk being truly seen again. How can we open ourselves to another person if we fear that he or she will discover what we're trying desperately to hide? That we're stupid, boring, incompetent, needy, or in some way deeply inadequate. Obviously, we won't meet many people's standards or win their affection, respect, or approval. So what? The problem arises when shame kicks in, and we aren't able to view our flaws, limitations, and vulnerabilities in a patient, self-loving way. The fear of rejection becomes understandably intense when it taps into our own belief that we are lesser than others, or lesser than the image we feel compelled to project. Rejection is a fast route back to childhood shame and global thinking that you'll always suck, you'll never be good enough, and that you are, intrinsically less than. And this was a big chunk. There's a lot there that I want to unpack, and that resonated so deeply with me. One, the framing of rejection or as rejection, right? It sometimes, in the case of, say, a job interview, it could be literally just luck of the draw that you are competing with other folks who just by nature have way more experience than you. It doesn't mean that you're not a good candidate, and that if you were in a different group of people, you could have easily been selected for that role. So it's, I want to challenge the concept of rejection. Rejection sounds so negative. Rejection, and again, maybe that's my own production. But that it's proof of our inadequacies. And I see this like when, I don't know, if I'm having a rough day and I'm stressed out, I'm kind of triggered, or just like it's a high anxiety day, if I drop my keys on the ground on my way out the door and then don't get the key in the lock right away, and I'm fumbling, and then let's say I'm clumsily walking over to my car and I spill my smoothie on the ground. All of these things, I'm going to be like, this, and now, that, and like, God, this day is shit. Like, I can't do anything right. All of these like little inconveniences become proof of like, this day sucks, or life is frustrating, or life is hard, or I suck. And so it's interesting how how easy it is to have things happen to us or in our lives, and then we immediately put it in a bucket of like, this is why I suck, or this is why the world sucks, this is why people suck, this is why we're all doomed. And it's like, is that helpful, first of all? But also what that does, it makes it really hard to, as she says, risk being truly seen again. I love that, because it's like, how can we live a life with an open heart to the good, to the possibility of good things and good people, if we are bracing ourselves for rejection, bracing ourselves for pain, for things to go wrong, for that other shoe to drop? Like, we're going to have our guard up constantly, and we're going to stop ourselves from experiencing things in life. And again, I think it comes back to what we look for, we will find. And I think if you look for the negative in life, there are plenty of examples. So, and then the shame part of like all these things about myself, or this happened, or I didn't get that job, and I never made it to the Olympics, or whatever it is, creates this shame. And it's this, and as she says, the global thinking, it's It's not a balanced view, right? Our objectivity goes out the window, and suddenly all we can see are our flaws and none of the good things about us, right? And this brings me to another point that Harriet Lerner talks about in the book, is that this anxiety, this fear, it tricks us out of the now because we begin obsessively replaying and regretting the past and worrying about the future, right? All our past fuck-ups and how we can possibly fuck it up in the future, or how we think it will. It's just inevitable. Good things don't happen to me. And that's something I am guilty of. And so, yeah, it tricks us into losing sight of our competence and our capacity for love, creativity, and joy. It tricks us into believing that we're lesser and smaller than we really are. Anxiety in this way interferes with self-regard and self-respect, the foundation which all rests. And I thought, oh, that's so good too. Like, why does everything have to come back to self-worth and self-love? It's like, whoa, if we just figure that out, everything else will be fine. But, that's kind of a lifelong journey. And it's about the process. But, it just totally distorts our perspective. And I see this within myself so much. So last Sunday, I was having a really high anxiety day where I was really down on myself, and all I could think about was all the ways that I'm behind, or I'm not working hard enough, or doing all the things that I feel like I should be doing. And then I was comparing myself to people and myself, and just a lot of negative self-talk. And I had baked cookies the day before, and I hadn't tasted them yet, and I ate them on that Sunday when I was in that really negative mindset. And I remember turning to my husband Greg and being like, these cookies suck. Like, god damn it, I made so many of them and they're shit. And then the next day I go to work, and I brought some cookies along as a snack, and I'm eating them at my desk, and I was like, you know what, these actually aren't that bad. And I've done this before too in the past, where I had a really high anxiety day, and I looked around my house and I was like, god damn it, I hate the way I've decorated things. What was I thinking? And it's so interesting how just the way I was feeling internally completely altered my objectivity and completely colored the way I viewed everything I was interacting with. And so I think it's important to, just find a way to become aware of I'm feeling a lot of anxiety right now. What I'm feeling is fear. I'm feeling shame, and I can't really trust my emotions right now. The way I see things now is going to be very different from how I feel things later. And so I think that's why it's so important not to make rash decisions in the height of those emotions, because we're not thinking clearly and rationally and objectively at that point. We're caught up in this obsessive thinking and in this global thinking, this very black and white view of ourselves and the world. And this is bringing me to my next point, and probably the last point I'll share in this video before I make this super long. But Harriet talks also about how anxiety revs up the judgmentalness and criticism within us. When directed towards the self, these often take the form of negative comparisons. And we are comparing our insides that we know very well with other people's outsides, how they are presenting to the world. And if we are also find ourselves being more judgmental of others, it's a reflection of stress and anxiety on our insides that we're projecting. And I thought that was really, really interesting. And maybe I will tackle that last sentence, that last bit in another video. But when we feel ourselves becoming really critical, on a day-to-day basis, I do okay. You know, I have moments of negative self-talk, and I'm normally pretty good about countering them, but I need to become more aware of, crap, okay, I'm having one of those days where all I can think of, all of my thoughts and my feelings are very critical of myself. I'm projecting onto other people. Nothing feels like it's going right. I am making a lot of negative comparisons. And why? Probably because I'm feeling very anxious, or I'm feeling fearful. I feel out of control. I feel overwhelmed. And I have to remind myself too that those comparisons that I'm making are not real, right? It's me against an image of somebody else or something else. And that's an unfair comparison to make. So anyways, I'm going to wrap it up here. Stay tuned for my next videos on this book, on the series, The Dance of Fear. I'll see you in the next one.